What?
We're doing an episode of the Watchlist podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Jacob Boyer, returning finally after a long hiatus of purely
2
me
years
being,
in the making.
2 years in the making. Purely me
2
being
years of anticipation.
lazy as shit, and
the fans have been going crazy.
Having to hire a whole new writing staff, a whole new group of VFX artists because they wouldn't accept the slave wages I was trying to pay them. Just a bunch of red tape that needed to be cut. But we're finally back, and we're doing things a little bit differently this time. In the last, I guess, technically season, I guess you would call it, it was mainly me and a rotating selection of guests every episode. But going forward, it's going to be not one, not two, but 3 hosts. I've recruited my 2 co-hosts of the other podcast that I'm part of, the Buttery Males, and we're going to move to a monthly format where we recommend each other some movies every month, and we break them down and share our thoughts on them. So welcome to the podcast, new co-hosts of the Watchlist podcast, Jake Domanski and Rob Morrissey. How are you guys doing?
Howdy ho. Doing well.
Happy.
And if I was doing good, no, I won't do it.
Wait, what? Is that a joke you were about to do? Hold on.
No,
what's that? What's that
no
joke?
jokes. This is a very serious podcast.
Let's not do jokes.
No, I do just want to tell listeners
No
now that
jokes.
Rob and I are here. This isn't your daddy's watch list. This is different, baby.
I really don't like this already.
Sorry.
Rob
All
wants
right.
out immediately. Rob
Yeah,
was
I'm
gung-ho
already-
up to this point, and after that, just one sentence from Jake, he's done. He's rethinking. Well, it's a shame that you are contractually obligated to be here, so
Yeah.
you're here
Sorry,
forever.
Rob, we're
Sorry.
stuck, man.
I can't. All right. Well, you'll be hearing from someone's lawyer. Not mine.
Stockholm Syndrome isn't that bad once you get used to it. It's not.
Dude,
No.
have you ever been to Stockholm?
It's fucking nice. Nobody ever leaves Stockholm.
Chill.
That's why you
That
never see.
dude-
That's why you never see tourism ads for Stockholm. Is because people
Yeah.
go there. It's never, hey, come and visit. It's, hey,
People
once
go
you get
missing
here,
in Stockholm.
yeah.
I mean, where do you like? That's where it comes from, like that syndrome. Like, of course, people say it's nice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've
'Cause
been
they're fucking
conditioned
stuck
to say so. Oh boy.
So we got some movies that we want to talk
Explain
about.
the podcast again. I don't get it.
Oh, you
I don't
don't
even know
remember
what
how
this
it works.
is.
Okay, so
No.
how this works is that we're going to be moving to a monthly format now instead of a weekly format, or up until like 2 years ago, every couple of months format. Whenever I would stop being lazy and edit an episode. How this is going to work going forward is that the first Monday of every month, we're going to have an episode out where we've recommended each of us is going to recommend a movie, 3 movies per episode. We're going to talk about these movies, share our thoughts and opinions on them. We're going to, at the end of every episode, we're going to tease what the next month's movies are going to be. So that way it gives you guys the opportunity to go track them down and watch them for yourselves, and you can be. It's like a little movie, movie
It's
club.
a movie scavenger hunt.
It's a movie
Is that what you're
scavenger
about
hunt.
to
It's
say?
a movie scavenger hunt, and it's a movie club. You can feel like you're
Do
in
we
on the
have to
discussion.
watch the movies?
That is kind of part of it. You have to at least skim through the movies, as Rob has done with several of my past
Hold
recommendations.
on. Wait, what? No. I've been on
here.
this episode or this podcast 2 times before this,
and you've admitted to skimming at least one of them.
I think I skimmed the Neil Breen movie.
And you watched that on Pornhub, so the fact that there were just tits,
Yeah,
the
I
fact that
did
there were
watch
just
that. I
the
totally
fact that
forgot.
there were just banners of tits all around the screen, and you were like still bored enough to be like, okay, I can't, I just whatever, like I need to get
I
through
was
this.
like, I gotta go
as
I
fast
gotta go
as
see what
possible.
them, I gotta go see what those titties are.
I gotta find out. I gotta find these sexy singles in my area.
Yeah,
they're getting really
hot,
aggressive.
these hot single moms that I
I need
keep
to learn
hearing
why
about.
doctors hate this guy for his one trick.
So okay, so this is it's a movie scavenger hunt club.
It's a watch list, you might say. It's a list of things that need to be watched.
I think I'm gonna start a competing podcast called the Watch To Do List.
The watch
where
the to-do list where you just talk about all the
the movies
a month
that I need to watch.
It's like,
yeah.
And it's just an hour and a half of you being like, okay, is this on Tubi? Is this on... Okay, it's not on Prime.
You like rummaging through like things, like you hear ruffling noises.
Like I'm going through filing cabinets.
Is Big Daddy in this pile of clothes? I don't. Well,
I gotta go. I guess I don't own that one. I gotta go to the fucking Blockbuster. And just, like the sounds of Rob leaving the house, getting in the car,
starting the car,
driving 40 minutes to the nearest Blockbuster.
Well, I mean, it's a like 10-hour podcast of me being like, "Where is the Blockbuster?"
Getting inside.
Too. There's a massive car accident Rob is in.
Getting inside and being like, "Hey man, do you have Barry Lyndon?" And it's like, "Oh no, we don't have any copies of that currently." Rob's just fuck. I just start like screaming at the guys,
asking people out the window of my car if they know where the Blockbuster is. Hey, I know there's one around here. I think I made a wrong turn and. I'm really flipped around right now. Could someone help me?
But then when you're not leaning out the window, like there's nothing going on in the car, just no listening to the music, no.
Well, just the sound of the sound of the air conditioning,
of the air
humming
conditioning,
in the background.
The like occasional thump of you going over a pothole, like go.
I'm just like, why did I say that?
Why
like,
did I fucking
like
say
ruminating about something that happened 2 years ago.
Man, I'm such a fucking idiot. I should just drive this car off a bridge right now.
Oh shit, there's the Blockbuster. Okay, I'm here. So yeah, that's gonna be the to-do list podcast. You guys can check that out when this one inevitably fails.
Honestly,
maybe more entertaining.
Yeah, a bit I would commit to if I wasn't so lazy. Well, all right. I mean,
Speaking of being lazy, I got a little bit of an anecdote for the listener. About up until a half hour ago, probably more like an hour ago.
It's not fair.
I was in a group text with Jake and Rob was bugging Jake to get off of the shared Voodoo account so he can watch Barry the Voodoo account that they're both stealing from somebody else. so Rob can watch a 3-hour movie in the span of 1 hour prior to the record.
For the record, I had already been watching it. I was like half an hour in, and then I got disconnected. And when I tried to restart, like play it again, I got the message that someone on my account had already.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah, it
message
doesn't
appear because I was on it too, and it says there's like some sort of like network error or something.
No, it 100%. It 100%. You kicked me off somehow. I don't know how you kicked me off.
Well, there's like ranks.
When I went
number 2, baby.
When I went back on there, like when I noticed that it had, because I was looking at my phone for like a while, so it could have. Anyway, I saw that someone had been, had beaten me out, and I've seen the movie like 8 times in the last couple months. Okay, like I was just trying to get like a little dose of it to get the vibe in my head before we talk about it.
I totally get that, because just before, like, I hopped over to Barry Lyndon to just like write down a line that I love so much. But just before that, I rewatched the movie I chose for today's episode, House. So I rewatched it, and so there is like procrastination on both our parts there. Like I can't.
We're really burying the lead here. Maybe we should say what movies we picked.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess starting off, the movie that we're referencing that Rob thought that he could cram into a half-hour long time frame.
Well, I was watching on 10 times speed.
10 times speed, Ben Shapiro speed. was the Stanley Kubrick film Barry Lyndon, 1975 period piece. Very, very good movie. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about Barry Lyndon?
So, in my expert opinion, Barry Lyndon is the Kubrick masterpiece that really proves that Kubrick is like above and beyond at most other filmmakers, if not leagues ahead of 95% of filmmakers. It's one of the greatest movies of all time and extremely underrated. You talk about this movie with film nerds, self-proclaimed film nerds. You bring up Barry Lyndon and they're like, oh, I've never heard of that before. And it's like, huh, buddy, you call yourself a film nerd? Like, what is you're not shit. So, you know, Barry Lyndon is just like it's the classic Irish rogue's tale. You know, it's the story of an Irish lad who is
Irish rogue or brogue?
Rogue, bro.
Okay.
I think it's rogue.
Okay.
It's the Irish rogue's tale, and you know, it's in fact, you know, the most Irish tale you could tell. A lovelorn, you know, broken-hearted lad leaving home to, you know, basically out of spite and anger that the woman he's in love with is you know, falling for someone else or just marrying for money or status in this movie's case. And yeah, it's like an epic tale. It crosses, you know, half of Europe and back. There's, you know, there's love, there's war, there's gambling, so much gambling. It's got some of the most gambling. It's got more gambling than gambling movie, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's you know, you watch this movie and like the two, you know, there's war and there's all kinds of stuff going on, but the two through line themes of the movie are gambling and dueling other people until one person dies. And so it's one of my favorite tales, and every time I watch it, the one thing that like is constantly going through my head is just waiting for characters to demand satisfaction. That's the essence of this movie is demanding satisfaction.
Yeah.
From someone else. So yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. I only to be fair, I am a self-proclaimed movie buff, and I hadn't seen Barry Lyndon until maybe 4 months ago. I didn't know what it was. And that's probably because my knowledge about Kubrick was like pretty lacking at the time. Aside from like the couple really big Kubrick movies like The Shining in 2001, and you know, upon seeing this movie, it immediately went straight to my top 10 and has even more rapidly advanced to my top 5 movies of all time, which is an impenetrable list. It's really hard to get into my top 5 favorite movies, and it edged out The Godfather in my top 5. Yeah, so it's
high praise.
It really, it's anyone who hasn't seen Barry Lyndon, I demand satisfaction. I demand you go and you watch this movie because it's one of the most impressive movies of all time, just in terms of not only like storytelling and acting, it just literally down to the science and the techniques by which it was filmed. It is one of the most technically superior films you'll ever see. Stanley Kubrick was hot off of working with NASA on cameras they could bring literally to the moon and like use on space shuttles.
Yep.
And use with telescope technology. So these are some of the most highly advanced cameras at the time. And honestly, I think if you were to like stack the cameras he used up against modern cameras, these would still at least hold their own, if not beat out a lot of the cameras that are used today.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get some just wildly impressive shots in this movie. If you go online, the common discourse around this film is that every scene of this movie looks like an oil painting. Like you
Yeah.
could
Well,
pause.
literally, a lot of the the exteriors are they went to like locations of famous landscape paintings and just
Right.
reframed it like as if it's the painting in the background, and then the scene of this movie is the foreground.
Listen, 99% of this film, you could pause it and print it out and hang it on your wall, and people would see it and be like, "Wow, what artist is that?" Like, truly, it's one of the most impressive movies of all time, in my opinion. Filmed with totally natural light, which at the time, like in the 1970s, to film with only natural light is super impressive to me. And even like to the point where like scenes that are in like darker rooms or nighttime only filmed with candles. Like it's a mind-blowing movie.
Yeah, I think honestly, Jacob, you told me that it was all natural light, and
Yeah.
I was like, "What the fuck?" Because I actually have a question about like one of the scenes. Then, I don't know if we're even at that point. Rob, I'll let you finish, but I don't know how this. I've been on this show twice, and I don't know what we're doing right. Maybe I bring this up later.
Well, no,
or do
we
I bring it
can.
up-
Rob said it. Like you guys are the audience. You're supposed to watch these movies before you listen to this. So like, if this is your last chance, if you haven't seen Barry Lyndon, go watch it now. Because in 3 seconds we're gonna start spoiling the shit out of it.
About to get into this shit.
Yeah, and it's Barry Lyndon is such a long movie. To tell the whole story would take forever. But just bullet points. See this fucking movie. It's Kubrick's best movie, in my opinion. It's the movie that defines the Kubrick filmography, in my humble opinion. And not enough people have seen it. And even to the point that like a lot of the actors who are in this movie fucking hate the shit out of it. Like the lead actor hates the movie. Like a lot of people who worked on this movie really don't like this movie, and I personally don't understand. And I'll kill you
that either.
Well,
if you don't see
a
this
lot
movie.
of there is a weird faction of people who are like, yeah, it was amazing. I got to work with Kubrick, legendary director. Wouldn't do it again. Would never do it again. The mental torment that I went through to get some of these shots.
Okay. Oh, that's
never,
right. Yeah,
never
I forgot
again.
Kubrick did that to people.
Like
for The Shining. Yeah, for The Shining, he like scared the shit out of that. What's her name?
Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall, yeah.
Not only that, but like he would do shit like the like getting a little bit away from Barry Lyndon, but the scene in The Shining where she finds the typewriter where it's like all work and no play makes Jack, and then there's that like long shot of her backing up the stairs, and Jack's like, I'm just gonna bash your brains in. They obviously, so for that scene they do over her shoulder looking at Jack, and then over Jack's shoulder looking at her, and that's the two angles they cut back and forth for the whole scene. They shot Jack's like 2 or 3 times, like, and then Kubrick was like, okay, great, moving on. And then they proceeded to do something obscene, like 100 some odd takes of her, just for the reason of he wanted to physically exhaust her so that she would just actually be crying when she's going up the stairs. Like, that's the kind of shit that Kubrick would do.
That's
his whole directing style with actors was like he didn't want actors to think.
He wanted it to just naturally like, come out of them, whatever, like that weird afterglow when you're so
that
exhausted. It's just
there was like
memory.
A breaking point where an actor like loses themselves enough to become the character, and it's like, all right, man.
And whenever he'd get them to that spot, like that take, he would like end up tossing it out anyway, which was always funny.
Well, there's another. So like the main character is played by Ryan O'Neal. Ryan O'Neal very publicly shit on this movie for a lot of reasons, but he's like one of the classic cases of Kubrick like completely lying to an actor to get a specific performance out of them. The same thing with Leonard Rossiter. I don't really know how you pronounce his name. He's the guy in 2001 Space Odyssey who is like questioning the guy on the space station about like the events on the moon, like the quarantine and stuff. And he's like, hey, you know, we know something's going on. You just gotta tell us. He plays Captain John Quinn, who is the kind of first antagonist of Barry Lyndon's long-winded story. And he very famously was like trying to play his role very serious, and Kubrick was trying to get like a more comedic performance out of him. He's one of the best examples of like what do you call it, like what's that thing where you add humor to kind of cut drama,
levity.
Sure. He's just that
is what that is.
His performance is very funny, and the actor was trying to go for like an extremely serious performance, and so it's just, this movie is a lot of Kubrick just fucking with actors to get specific ideas onto camera, and it's really amazing what he did.
Yeah.
I do want to get back to some of that, but going back to the lighting thing, this is the first question I had. I don't even know if you guys can answer this, but there's a scene in the movie where, you know, he's trying to like Redmond, he's trying to work his way into fortune by marrying that like that rich lady, that what
Lady
is she,
Lyndon.
like
Lady
Lyndon.
Lyndon.
That's right. And there's a scene where, you know, this is when he's like, one of his escapades is that he's like a gambling man who, like, you know, plays a rigged game, kind of like cons people out of money. And there's a scene where they're on her estate or whatever, and she like goes outside for some fresh air, and there's this like lighting going on that looks like it's just like it. You guys said it was natural lighting only, so I'm like, is that the moonlight that is like
there
lighting up
been...
that entire scene when she's out on the balcony, and like that's when Redmond like approaches her and kisses her?
I don't want to say there was no lighting department there for like that stuff. They might have brought out like a big fill with a gel on it to make it look like it's the moon, but all of the like interiors is 100% natural lighting. It's just whatever light, like if it's daytime, it's whatever light was coming through the windows, and if it's nighttime, it's however many candles they could fit in that set.
Right,
like,
and I did notice that, and that's amazing. Like Rob said, it's like oil paintings, like you're looking at. It's seriously just like a beautiful movie. But that I would like to know that answer. Like if it, like at some point maybe I'll look that up. But like if that was moonlight, because I was thinking about that, I was like, this is truly like an incredible fucking feat. Like Stanley Kubrick's like, the moon will be highest on this day, and
exactly.
like, there's gonna be a clear sky.
Yeah.
Well, here, I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit. With again going to another Kubrick movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. So all of the stuff in the Dawn of Man
on
sequence,
the moon is real.
Yeah, the moon is real. They actually went to the moon. No, all of the stuff in the Dawn of Man sequence, it was done with something called front screen projection, where they would essentially, you take a photograph and you project it onto this big white sheet, and then you dress enough of a set in front of that white sheet to make it look like it's just one continuous long open like area, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
So to get those, because the original plan was they were going to go just on location to Africa or wherever they shot it, but then Kubrick got a huge phobia of flying, and he was like, I'm not going to fly down with the rest of this crew to Africa because I'm too scared to set foot on a plane. This is what we're going to do. You guys, I'm going to send a group of photographers down to Africa. You guys are just going to take a bunch of pictures of stuff that you think would look good as backgrounds, and like mark down the exact like global coordinates that you were at when you took these pictures. And then I'm going to decide which ones I like, and then make micro adjustments and send you back down to take those pictures again. Until like, that's how much of a control freak
he was. A lunatic.
Yeah, a complete lunatic.
such a psychopath. Yeah. And for the lighting on Barry Lyndon, there's a reason there's very few outdoor nighttime scenes in the movie. Probably specifically for that reason, is like, trying to find the right days in a lunar cycle to film would be,
Not
I mean,
outside of the scope of something that he would
well,
try and do.
yeah,
Right,
I
that's why
mean,
I'm like,
you
maybe
think
that's what he did.
you think about famous control freaks, and you're like, well, if there was one man who's going to devise a way to control the
the
movements
fucking
of the
moon.
moon,
Yeah.
yeah, but the other thing that's like pretty famous about this movie is because like when you film with candles, like a individual candle isn't like bright enough really to fill a room the way a camera like needs. So what they did was they had custom like candles made that had 3 wicks all like wrapped together inside of the candle.
Right.
And in doing that, they actually caused the candles to burn down like twice as fast.
So they'd have to replace them constantly.
All the time. So there's a lot of scenes in this movie where if you focus on the candles, they're always kind of like they're inconsistent. Like and that's just by virtue of like you're filming 100 takes of an individual shot, and you have to replace the candle every 5 minutes. Like
and Rob mentioned it earlier too. These cameras, again, coming right off of 2001: A Space Odyssey, so he had like state of the art, like NASA, like telescope quality cameras. So a lot of the reason why those cameras could like pick up so much light is because they were designed to be like looking out into space and focusing on like really minute light sources, so the ISO qualities were through the roof. They were able to allow much more light into the actual camera to pick up what was happening. That's part of the reason why it looks so unique, and part of the reason why you can get away with doing, we're just gonna have like 5 candles on this table, and that's all we need.
we joked on this podcast about camera angles because of a movie we watched previously. When I talk to people about this movie, my camera angles opinion is this movie has some of the most interesting and like expert zoom in and zoom out scenes, because they'll just be focused on a individual character across a fucking lake, and there will be a 15-second zoom out that just reveals this amazing oil painting landscape behind them, and it's some of the most impressive shit of all time. Like you don't see, movies don't zoom in and zoom out the way that Barry Lyndon fucking zooms in and zooms out.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I think Rob, it was you and Brennan, like pretty much at the same time. We're like, Barry Lyndon, you gotta watch Barry Lyndon.
He put me onto it 100%.
And yeah, so you were like saying it's a Kubrick movie, and I was like, I don't consider myself a movie expert, but I was like, the movie expert that didn't know shit. Like I was like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And you were like, it's a Stanley Kubrick movie. It's fucking amazing. And I was like, I definitely have seen a lot of Kubrick. Like I missed this. And yeah, it is like, I've only seen it probably 3 times within the past like 3 months or whatever.
Which is a lot. I mean,
it is a lot. It's a
movie,
for a 3-hour movie.
It's a 3-hour, but it's amazing.
Movie,
it's truly like it is one of my favorite movies. Like now, for real, it is
rocks.
so fucking good. And I don't know. There's just like so much to it. I fucking love. Like I really like. I said this like a dumbass basically to you, Rob, but I was like, I really, really love the first half of the movie, and it's like. You were like, well, yeah, you're really supposed to love the first half, and you're really like supposed to not like.
Oh yeah,
like the second half. It's not that you're not supposed to not like it, but you know that like Barry Lyndon or Redmond starts to like go downhill. They literally say it at the half.
It's like here's what it is. It's because it's a Kubrick movie, so it has an intermission. It's just he was.
That's just what movies did back in the 60s and 70s.
And he was probably one of the last filmmakers to still kind of hold to this idea of an intermission. And at the like act break during the intermission, is literally the final moments of Redmond Barry's life before Redmond Barry becomes Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
And so Redmond Barry's story is very like, coming from nothing, like working his way from the top, like
Takes
going through
the
war
most L's
and
I think I've ever seen anyone take.
yeah, like
He's
a guy
scheming,
who
he's scamming, he's having a ball,
he's
like
dueling,
he's having a
he's
good time.
gambling, like
He's living
it's
life.
yeah, and then he becomes Barry Lyndon for the second half of the movie, and Barry Lyndon's story is extremely tragic. It's just
although a berry, it's not so sweet.
you should write movie reviews.
You should write movie reviews.
You
Go
should
back to the 70s and
Roger
be the
Ebert.
yeah. Yeah, so it's a movie that it's got a lot going on, and it's based on a novel called The Luck of Barry Lyndon, which it's a extremely ironic title because he is one of the most unluckiest like characters of all time.
Really quick before, because you mentioned it's based on a book. One other really funny thing that I found out about is that Kubrick was kind of known for like Napoleon was one of his like personal heroes. Like he always wanted to make a movie about Napoleon, but it just every single time he would try and write it, he would try and cram so much detail in, and it would just keep getting bigger and bigger, and nobody would give him the money to do it. And then with this, it was like in like after 2001, he like finally was like, okay, I can finance this almost on my own. I can finally make my Napoleon movie. And then another Napoleon movie, I think called Waterloo, came out in the US and it didn't do very well. And then all of the investors for his Napoleon movie backed out, and he was like, well, fuck, I have all these resources and I've done all this research into doing a period drama. Well, what the fuck do I do? So like Barry Lyndon was a pivot. Like he was fully ready to like make his Napoleon masterpiece, and then he was like, well, I mean, I guess there's this book I read recently about this guy named Barry Lyndon. I guess we can kind of we can do this instead. Like
incredible. It was like kind of an afterthought because it is fucking incredible. It's so good.
But yeah, sorry, Rob, you were saying.
I don't know, but it just seemed fucking yeah. The other thing that's very interesting about this movie is it takes place during the 7 Years' War between France and England, and the book itself was written, I think, in the 1840s, or at least that's when it's published, and so it's I think the reason it feels like a very kind of grounded, accurate sort of movie. Like it doesn't feel like a jump the shark kind of period piece, is because the 7 Years' War happens in I can't remember the exact date, but I think the 1700s, and then in the 1800s the book is written, and then like 100 years later Kubrick makes the movie, and so it's an interesting like time capsule piece in my opinion. That's the only other reason I kind of bring it up.
Yeah. Yes, you do bring it up.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, here, let me get more specific. The 7 Years' War. The 7 Years' War was between 1756 and 1761, and so then about 100 years later, the book is written about a character involved in the 7 Years' War, and then another 100 years later, Kubrick does the movie. And so it's I think it's just all around a very interesting timetable for this movie to kind of come about as well.
In 40 years there's going to be a VR experience to celebrate the 300-year anniversary, maybe an MCU quality remake.
That's the first video game we're putting our money into in the Buttery Mails game studio.
For sure, and the only background music track is 21 Savage's "A Lot."
Yeah,
it's on repeat basically. So good. For people who don't know, there was a video.
Well, so the other thing is so Brennan put Brennan Boris, one of our friends and co-hosts, and he's been on the show. He
Former guest of this show, former host of the Buttery Mails, former
Yeah,
guest of the Buttery Mails. We've been known to
he's
associate
dead.
with him.
Yeah, you know,
he was a former actually of a construction site.
He, to my knowledge, found this movie because of a 20-second Barry Lyndon fan cam set to the 21 Savage song a lot, specifically the chorus of the song. And the fan cam for the, and maybe like in the description you should put a link like so people can find that video, because the 20-second fan cam of this movie is as good as the movie. Like the 20
that says a lot. Like that's
Truly,
really
like,
I personally subscribe to the theory that Kubrick didn't actually die. He retired, and then he decided that he was gonna, you know what, I made my fortune with these long 3-hour epics. I want to see if I can do the same thing, but in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It is fucking badass, that like little clip. Like that 20-second video.
It rocks.
So good to that music.
But yeah, I mean,
really funny because this is not a movie I think about when I'm like, oh man, that's badass. I think about this movie as more of a comedy than anything. I laughed a lot at this movie.
It's fucking hilarious.
It's a really funny movie. It's got a lot of great drama and like romance stuff in it, and just the human experience. But like, it's a fucking tough ass movie, dude.
It is tough. It's fucking. The 21 Savage song, like, I did find appropriate, weirdly.
Yeah.
Enough. Like, I was like, this is just like men were men, although they were also boys. Like,
right.
It's just, like the whole demanding satisfaction thing, like going back to that, just kind of plays into like, I'm a gangster. I'm gonna get what I want.
No, exactly.
And the idea of like of a grown man whipping another grown man for strangling his younger brother. Like,
yeah.
And then that guy who got whipped being like, "I will never be punished by your hand again."
I have two final thoughts. Just because I could talk about this movie literally forever if we wanted to. Look at the drip. The drip that people, the drip of the people in this movie, just every single outfit is oozing drip. I mean, I watched this movie for the first time and I was like, that's how we should dress today. Like we
should bring it back.
Yeah, we fucked up moving away from like this 17th century garb. Like it's some of the I mean every
shot is the Met Gala, like the best it's ever been.
It rocks, dude. And there's so many times where when the first time I watched this with Brennan, Barry Lyndon would come into the scene in just an even drippier outfit than the last, and it was just like, dude, this fucking guy is drenched right now. Like it rocks. The clothing
That's so
and
funny.
The costumes in this movie are really fantastic and impressive. And the other thing, and this is a pretty controversial opinion if you actually talk to people who like appreciate the movie. And once you've seen the movie, you will know whether I'm right or wrong. Lord Bullington is not the bad guy.
He's not.
Lord
he's not,
Bullington
but he's certainly like an annoying like bitch.
No, Lord Bullington is. Lord Bullington has done nothing wrong, and a lot of people think he's like an annoying piece of shit in the end.
Lord Bullington is Barry if Barry had a spine at the beginning of the movie and didn't just run away.
Lord Bullington is for real like the hero of the movie in the end.
Oh, God, no.
That's just my opinion, you know. And for anyone who has not seen the movie who is going to watch it, you'll either really super hard disagree with me after watching it, or you will see it my way that he was totally in the right to play out the movie the way he did.
I agree with you that he's in the right, but I think he's just like so ugh.
I also find
if
it
he was a
funny.
noise, he would be.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well,
I find it really funny that like there's only really 2 times in the whole movie like where Barry does something like honorable in his like pursuit of what he wants. Like first time being when he saves that guy in the fire, which then ultimately gets him hooked up with the other dude who's like running the gambling scams, and then they run away and do their shit together. But really the only other time that he does anything remotely honorable is when he purposely fires into the ground dueling Lord Bullington, and then that just comes back to bite him in the ass immediately.
So
I just find that funny. Like
honestly,
a guy
there's
who's
an argument to be made that that's not even honorable. Like,
well, I
it's
mean,
kind
yeah,
of
like
kind of a
I don't even consider
kind of
you
a
enough
shit
of a threat.
move.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not a shit move. It's like this guy
like,
basically
you're an
saying
insolent
like
child, and I'm gonna treat
you
as
can't
such.
beat me.
Yeah,
I'm not like. Here's your chance to run away. Like,
I'm rocking like a 80-0 record for dueling. Okay, like I am like a master dueler, and you are a child.
I was honestly expecting it to come full circle and have it find out that he actually stuffed his thing with toe or whatever that thing was called.
Toe. Yeah.
That they tricked Barry with in the beginning. I thought they were gonna try and trick.
That would be actually fucking hilarious.
That was a
like
theory.
Sitcom, like happy ending. Like you see.
Well, that was
Now
a
you
theory
know what you think.
that was a theory I had for a while, and this is I don't want to spoil what happens in the end, but
Even
I
though
will
we're in
just
spoiler talk right now.
Okay, fine. Well, in the end, there's a duel between Lord Bullington and Barry Lyndon for Lady Lyndon's honor, essentially. But really, Lord Bullington's just trying to protect the estate from Barry, who's spending all the money like crazy, and bankrupt them, essentially. And in the duel, Lord Bullington misfires when he's cocking his dueling pistol. And for a
He's
long...
such a bitch. It's crazy.
For a while, I was pretty convinced that the dueling pistol had been rigged by Barry, but I have been thoroughly defeated in that opinion. There's like no way that that's what happened.
Because they say these are Lord Bullington's guns, and
and it's Lord Bullington's second is the one who loaded them. So but I was convinced just on the level of like the irony, or whatever you want to call it, of like that playing out, and Barry thinking he could kind of one up this kid and just get out scot-free, and Lord Bullington misfires the pistol, and then Barry Lyndon, in a somewhat honorable move but also kind of just like a shit heel move,
he's just calling him a kid. When he fires into the ground, he's like, you're just a kid.
You're a kid. You're not enough of a threat for me to even like try and shoot you right now. You're not worth this bullet.
So,
get out of here.
Barry fires into the ground, and the guys who are with them kind of officiating the duel ask Lord Bullington if he is satisfied, and of course he isn't.
Of course he isn't.
Takes a real shot at Barry and kind of
blows his fucking leg off.
Yeah. So again, I could talk about this movie for hours, and we have 2 other movies to talk about. So just I would say, like, if we wanted to rate Barry Lyndon, it's a 10 out of 10 across the board. There's not a single problem with it, and anyone who thinks there is does not know what movies are, and their opinion should be disregarded on everything.
I agree with that.
That's very fair. So sorry, Jake, go ahead.
I just have also some closing statements I'd like to say about Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. So there's a character in the beginning of the movie. He doesn't last very long, but he is by far my favorite character in the entire movie. His name's Captain Grogan. And
the highwayman?
No. Is he the highway? No, he's the dude who's part of the British Army who basically like kind of takes care of Barry or Redmond.
Oh, okay.
A little bit in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I just want to read some quotes real quick as to why I love him. So the beginning of the movie starts out that Nora, who is Redmond's cousin, like they show affection towards each other. There's like a lot of humor in that alone. But she ends up like getting with that guy
Captain Quinn.
Captain Quinn that Rob had mentioned
Captain
earlier, and this obviously makes Redmond very upset about the whole thing. He wants to be with his cousin, and there's like a scene where Captain Quinn proposes to Nora, and then like basically Redmond throws a glass in his face, and he's like kicked out of this dinner party. He's like infuriated at the proposal, and so this guy Captain Grogan is like walking him back to his house basically, and he's kind of like asking him, like, Captain Grogan, he's like, why would you do that? Like, this guy will be good for your family. He's a prospect basically to have. He's gonna bring in like 1,500 guineas. How is it, like a year or like even less than that, a month or something?
I think it's a year.
But Redmond, like, he's like telling this guy, he's like, I'm gonna be the one to have Nora, and like what Redmond says is, mark this and come what will of it. I will fight the man that pretends the hand of Nora Brady. I'll follow him, if it's into the church, and fight him there. I'll have his blood, or he'll have mine. Then Captain Grogan, he pauses. He's like, Faith and I believe ya. I never saw a lad more game in me life. Give me a kiss, me dear boy. You're after me own soul. As long as Jack Grogan lives, you shall never want a friend or a second. Just like the most epic shit, because basically he does just kind of take care of Barry or Redmond for a little bit there. And then the final quote you ever hear from Captain Grogan is, well, they go to battle. Like Redmond ends up joining the British Army, and he goes to battle alongside Captain Grogan. They're walking forward, and I think Barry or Redmond, he's supposed to stand like the line and keep going, but Captain Grogan is shot, and he cares for him very dearly, so he like picks him up on his shoulder and he walks him off the battlefield, and he like lays him down, and they look at each other, and Captain Grogan says to him, I have only 100 guineas left to give you, for I lost the rest in cards last night. Kiss me, me boy, for we will never meet again. And he kisses him, then Captain Grogan dies, and it like wrecks Redmond Barry. It like
it's fucking hardcore. Like it's
more.
It's sad as shit.
It's sad as shit. Modern war movies don't have the balls for
that guy
like
was
Brad
the best.
Pitt for
He's
like
fucking dead, and he dies in the most epic way.
For like Brad Pitt and Fury to look at that like kid and be like, "Kiss me, my boy," right at the very end. War movies are just not as badass as they used to be back in the 70s.
Bradley Cooper's Chris Kyle never kisses a dying Navy SEAL.
Yeah,
it's super badass. He's like, all right, I'm out. Like I'm dead.
I know it. I'm dead. Here's the last of my money. Sorry, I can't give you more. I blew it all gambling last night because I didn't think we were gonna fucking live today. Look, I guess I was right. Oh well, fucking kiss me before I go.
But it's like all of those like things we mentioned earlier. It's like it's a bit funny. It's really epic. It's sad. It like Barry Lyndon is just so good with being everywhere it needs to be, like just perfectly. Yeah. And like even to get to that quote today, there's like a scene that made me laugh like out loud so hard, and it's when right after Nora is like seen talking to that Captain John Quinn, and they get like in a bit of a row, and like it's like Redmond said, I'm paraphrasing, it's basically like Redmond like vowed he would never like see Nora again, but like that only lasted a week before he decided to like go and see her. It's so funny. He's just like a little boy, just like, I'll never see her again. Well,
fine. You're talking about the narrator when he's chopping wood outside.
Yes,
of his,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It fucking is so funny. But that's pretty much all I wanted to point out. I love that movie too, and it's fucking amazing. It's so good. Oh, and the guy, real quick, my last thought is that Ryan O'Neal as Redmond Barry. This is maybe a deep cut for some comedy people, but he does really look like Nick Weiger in a crazy way. Like Nick Weiger's a writer / comedian, and I couldn't help but think that this guy looks like Nick Weiger when I first saw it.
So Photoshop the poster to say Nick Weiger instead of Barry Lyndon.
But yeah, if I have final thoughts on it, it's an amazing movie and also 10 out of 10. I love it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It's in the interest of time. It's one of Kubrick's best. I like it a lot. If anyone still hasn't seen it after having us spoil the shit out of it, you can find it on YouTube. You can rent it pretty much. You can rent it for as low as $3. So you have no excuse not to watch it. It's on YouTube, Amazon
widely
Prime,
available.
Voodoo, widely available.
And
support Stanley Kubrick because he's like a no name who's kind of like just coming up, and
he's
like
really struggling
this
these
film
days.
killed it.
Yeah. Speaking of films killing it, literally and figuratively, Jake recommended a quote unquote horror movie that I really like, called House, or as they say in the trailer, Hausu. It's a 1977 Japanese. They advertised it as a horror film, but I think that much like Barry Lyndon, you can enjoy this as a comedy just as much as a horror film. So Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit what House is about?
Yeah, House is really wild. It's one of my favorite movies ever because it just is ceasingly like entertainment, like just in every shot. Like it's just entertaining, not entertainment. It's so good. It's basically these schoolgirls go on a trip to visit the one girl's aunt, and little do they know she is either a witch or like has become inhabited by a witch. It's kind of hard to tell, but they kind of get killed off one by one. So it's in its own way, it's a slasher, but it's really like insanely trippy, and it just like it pulls out everything in its arsenal to keep you like watching. It's there's never a dull moment in this movie, whether that's like something that's like literally happening in a scene or something like the camera is doing or like the edits for a certain scene, that it just keeps you paying attention. And yeah, it's just really fucking fun and wild like throughout the entire thing.
A lot of the internet describes it as an experimental movie.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it is a... Man, I had a hard time with both of your picks this time around. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Without getting into Jacob's pick yet, when I watched House, just to start off, a bit of interesting background people may not know. This movie is 1977 Japanese experimental horror comedy, and when you watch it, there is no English dub. There are only subtitles.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you watch it, there are verified English subtitles that are actually what people are saying in the movie. And then there are just the English subtitles, which were put in by the director and are completely wrong and only intended to screw with audiences after the fact.
Whoa, I didn't know those.
Yeah, and so I watched the first 20 minutes of this movie with the wrong subtitles on, and
wow,
I was just like, this is the most insane fucking shit I've ever seen. I was like, this can't be real, and I went looking for a different version of the movie, and that's when it was explained to me thanks to some online commenters that the director purposefully made like these funny, ridiculous English subtitles, and the movie in fact did not have like correct subtitles, English subtitles, for a very long time. And so I had to go back and rewatch with the correct subtitles, and man, I got some opinions about this fucking movie.
One
All
thing
right.
I'd like to say going into it, again, this can be like your final, hey, go watch House if you haven't yet, but something fun to keep in mind going into watching this movie for the first time is that, again, released in 1977, essentially what happened, Toho Studios, the company that made this film, went to the director, Nobuhiko Obayashi, and were essentially like, hey man, so over in America, this movie came out called Jaws. And it's about this shark that like is eating people, and there's a boat, and there's these guys trying to kill the shark. That really worked out well over there. We wanted you to like we want Japan to have its own Jaws. We want you to like do Jaws but over here. And I'm reading off the which that is kind of funny in and of itself that like the guy
Yeah.
sees a shark.
It's funny how
movie.
close it was. It's like a one
Yeah,
for
it's
one.
almost a
basically.
one for one. The scene where the character literally named Kung Fu is like when I delivered the bomb. But what I'm reading now, which off the Wikipedia, which I find is kind of is really cool. I'll just read this verbatim. To find inspiration for the story, Obayashi discussed ideas with his preteen daughter, Chigumi Obayashi. Nobuhiko sought her ideas, believing that adults only think about things that they understand. Everything stays on that boring human level, while children can come up with things that can't be explained. Several of Chigumi's ideas were included in House, such as the reflection in the mirror attacking the viewer, a watermelon being pulled out of a well appearing like a human head, and the house that eats the girls. Which I think like on some level is kind of cool. Like think, okay, well,
It is cool.
What
I like all that shit.
what is something that scares like because something you can't explain is going to be way more frightening in my mind than something that can be explained away, which I think we'll get into a little bit more with my recommendation. So I like the idea that he's like,
Nice.
instead of me trying to like come up with shit that's scary, how about I just go to somebody who is going to come up with ideas that just make no fucking sense and I'll make scary shit out of that. Like
it's like impossible to take this film seriously at all. Like like as you're watching it, it's fully cartoonish and just like wild. Like the main characters' names, it's like these schoolgirls.
Gorgeous
is number one.
Gorgeous,
Fantasy.
Kung Fu, Prof, Fantasy, Mac, Sweet, and Melody.
Well, and
now I'm gonna name them: Fantasy, Gorgeous, Melody, Kung Fu, Prof, Mac, and Sweet. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
and no, I'm not gonna do that. But I will say that for the viewer, if anyone is interested, Kung Fu does Kung Fu.
Yeah,
and when she does Kung Fu, it goes like full on insane 70s Kung Fu movie with like a music change and really fast cuts between like Kung Fu moves.
And like each of their names are their personality.
Melody,
so like,
Melody
plays
like,
music. Prof is like the smart one because it's short for professor. Gorgeous is just gorgeous. Fantasy is always daydreaming, in particular about a teacher she has a crush on named Mr. Togo. Mac, that's like Big Mac. She just eats all the time. Sweet, Sweet, like she's in the movie, but not really. Like who cares about Sweet? Like,
she's just sweet. She's a sweetheart. She's like she's always cleaning and like trying to cook and help with things. And let me just the movie itself, like. It's a really interesting movie, and I not to say I didn't like it, because like there's a lot to like about it as far as movies go, and I mean it's in the Criterion collection, so it's like
there's some merit there.
Yeah, and it's a pretty well regarded film for what it is. But there's
people who don't know what this is could recognize the poster by seeing the poster and the cover is very iconic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's like great about this movie, and even just down to like the satirical nature of a horror movie. They play around with a lot of tropes that are kind of great to mess around with, but it's like the horror aspect of it, I guess for me watching it, it was was so all over the place with stuff that at times I watched this movie alone, and well, I shouldn't say alone. My cat was sleeping on my lap, but I
I
think
was really hoping that like you watched this while on your like almost semi-daily dose of mushroom tea. I was really
Oh my
hoping
God,
that
imagine that.
we would hear
Well,
about that.
what I will say is I kind of wish I had gotten to watch this movie the same way I watched The Room for the first time, which was just like with a bunch of friends, like, you know, drinking and like maybe smoking some weed, because I think watching it alone, I was just kind of like, you know, this is, you know, like back and forth between these different genres, and I was watching it kind of to like analyze it for this podcast. But I think this would be a really good watch party movie. Like if you were getting together with a group of people to kind of just like get drunk and
Yeah.
watch some like, you know, kind of funny, you know, weird movies. And when I compare it to The Room, it's not like laughably bad. That's not what I'm saying. But
It's a
it's
fun
a movie
movie
that,
with a crowd. And
yeah,
I
exactly.
literally like when I try to do like a Halloween party mostly every year, this is generally one of the ones that I put on later in the night when everyone's had a few drinks and we just want to be like, oh yeah, we have something scary on. It's this house that's
Right.
eating these girls, and everyone always has a fun time with it.
I remember you told me that, Jacob, and I was like jealous because I've only seen this movie alone. But the first time I watched it, I got a really nice bottle of bourbon, and I was just like having a blast by myself watching this movie. I don't know. I really like the vibes of it all. It's like
Yeah.
it isn't, in my opinion, it's not scary really in the least bit. I would say there's actually two scenes in it that are like played as like more funny, although something scary is happening in it.
Yeah.
That disturbed me. And those two scenes are when the head is pulled out of the well.
Yeah,
That is
really.
scary, like for
That
real.
that was the one moment in the movie where I got some legitimate chills running down
Yeah,
my back,
Mhm.
where I was like, "That's fucking horrifying."
there's like it's a funny thing, but it's actually like just really like fucked up. Like this, it's the head of the first girl who goes missing, Mac. And like what they put in the well originally was a watermelon Mac had picked up like before they got to the house. And when they pull, like when I think it's Fantasy, she pulls the watermelon out and she's not looking, she's in a daydream, and she's holding the watermelon and then looks down and it's Mac's head, and it starts like floating around and like saying some shit to her, and then
Yeah.
vomits blood like everywhere and then bites her butt. It's like really crazy. But
Mhm.
I thought that was scary. And then there's one more scene that like it freaked me out, and I thought, okay, there's like some movies have maybe taken from this, like, and made a trope out of this, or maybe like House was the first to do this. But Gorgeous is like taking a bath at one point, and there's like this hair in the water that like creeps up on her back and over her shoulders momentarily. And I was like, you know what? This is where like The Grudge got that shit from, for real. Like they must have.
I watching this movie, I had some real like Grudge vibes.
Yeah.
And like The Ring too, a little
Yeah,
bit.
for sure.
There was
Yeah.
definitely some stuff in this movie where I was like, oh, okay, I can see where that comes from in the zeitgeist of like specifically like long, wet, dark hair, like
Yeah.
like almost
Scary. That stuff
yeah,
is freaky.
super
That is
scary. Like you know, the way it like lays on wet skin and
Mhm.
almost looks like
like
looks
tendrils.
otherworldly. Yeah. Looks like tendrils exactly. So and dude, I gotta say, like the aunt who is either a witch herself or has been like possessed by a witch, which they hint at both possibilities in the movie, is legitimately terrifying at times.
It is
like
scary, yeah.
she's really creepy, and the only like again the thing this movie does where, you know, like I said, it's very back and forth with themes. It's like with Mac's head being pulled out of the well, super scary imagery, but then it's like shifted to comedy with the head like floating around and biting Fantasy's butt and saying, "Ooh, that tastes good," before the scene like cuts, and then
Fantasy going, "Don't eat my butt," or something.
Same thing with the aunt. There's a scene where the aunt is like eating one of the girls' hands who's been killed, and she's like making potions with like pieces of their skin. But then in that same
by the way, to a song is maybe you're getting to this. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say in the same sequence, then it's the witch, the aunt, like dancing with a skeleton and like boogieing throughout the house in like a very, very comical 70s style. It's so the movie like clearly doesn't take itself very seriously, which I think is a good thing for what they're doing.
I agree. I just want to say in that same sequence, it's a song is in the background and there's a melody going on while like the aunt who's a witch is dancing with the skeleton. The cat comes in the scene and also takes over the melody via meows.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that part. Yeah.
Ridiculous. So it's meowing the melody. It's pretty insane. It's really fun though. But
the one other thought I had is the girl Melody, who is the piano player.
Yeah.
She keeps playing the same song, which is also like the song the witch kind of vibes to.
It's the song that keeps playing over and over throughout the entirety of the movie.
Yeah. And there's a scene where like 3 girls have disappeared and the 3 like remaining girls in the house they're locked in the house, like they can't get out. All the windows and doors have locked and they're in the room with the piano, and I think Prof suggests that Melody play a song on the piano to like cheer them all up, and she just plays the same creepy fucking spooky song that's been playing all movie. And in my head I'm like, hey, what about some like fucking Camptown Races or something? Yeah. Like let's why are we you only know one you're not passing the vibe check right now, Melody. Like this is not making things better.
Gets punished
not as good as music as we thought.
Then gets punished by having her fucking fingers bitten off one by one.
Totally eaten by the piano.
Also a weird scene where a piano eats her fingers, like bites her fingers off. She raises her hands and she's giggling and she's like, "Ha, my fingers are gone." And then
using disbelief.
Yeah, and sets her one hand back down on the piano, and the piano bites her whole, like half her arm off, and that's when she like freaks out, and it's just like, it's such a weird
fantasy. That's going cross-eyed and passing out. In the corner.
That scene was my introduction to this movie. A college friend of mine was like, "You should check out this movie, Houseu," and I was like, "Oh, what's it about?" And he just played that scene for me, and I was like, "Okay, I should see this."
And like even after Fantasy finds Mac's head in the well, everyone is like eating watermelon, and Fantasy is like freaking out, internally, and she looks over at the aunt, and the aunt is just kind of casually eating watermelon, but then like opens her mouth a little bit, and you see an eyeball like moving around, and Fantasy's like startled, and the aunt closes her mouth, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But then she does it again. She does it again.
The aunt fucks with Fantasy the most because Fantasy is like fully tweaking about everything. But I will say that also like the second time around, I was like, oh shit, are they just like this is a witch thing that's going on? Like they're eating Mac's head or something, like, and they don't even know it because they think it's a watermelon.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even. That's an interesting take.
Because there's like a slice of watermelon that's like wriggling at a certain point, and you hear like Mac, like her screams come from it or whatever, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize that the first time around.
It's a super trippy movie, and the only other thing that watching it, I was just like, it's one of those things where I was like, God damn it, Japan! Like you just you can't like get away from the stereotype. Like there's not a lot of it, but weirdly sexualizing like these 16-year-old schoolgirls a handful of times, including
You don't know they're
Kung
16.
Yeah, you do. You
do?
100% do, because they're in the when they first show up at the house, the aunt is like, "When was the last time I saw you?" And Gorgeous says to her, "It's been 10 years. The last time I was here was for, grandma's funeral, and it's already been established that she's 16 years old." So they're all 16-year-old girls. And
Wait, but that's not. You're pulling up that scene like that establishes it, although you just referred to another scene where it's been established. So
no,
what scene is that?
what I'm saying is like
I thought they were going off on summer vacation to like start their lives.
no,
Because if you are right, then that is extremely like fucked up, because they do show these women like nude, like at multiple points.
yeah, and Kung
Which
Fu
is a problem.
is running around in booty shorts the whole
That's
time,
true,
and
yeah.
it's there's some, again, I'm not really bringing it up to like be like come on Japan, like it's
I'm with you if that's the
2023,
case though,
but,
like there is a certain thing where it is like,
They-
maybe get your act together, Japan.
They do sexualize these young schoolgirls, and I mean, even down to the fact that there's like a 40-year-old school teacher who's like who's planning on going on summer vacation with these young girls.
It's like, them in fantasy is like waiting for Mr. Togo to ask her the question to marry her.
It's a super weird vibe in some of that stuff. And just also on Mr. Togo, let me just say, for a lot of the movie, they keep kind of, he's a crazy character. He
fully a cartoon man.
Yeah, ends up not going on the vacation, like not getting on the bus with them to go to the house, because he like falls down a bunch of stairs and lands on a bucket that gets stuck on his butt.
Gets stuck on
the butt. One of the greatest.
Gets hit by a car, and then when he explains to the girls like over the phone that he's gonna miss the bus to go with them, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's really bad. I have to go to the hospital to get this metal."
Because a little kid's like playing his butt like a bongo at that.
Yeah,
it's getting killed basically.
And then the whole movie, they keep going back to him where it's like he's on his way, like someone's gonna come help, and it's like he's stuck in traffic. Then he stops at like a noodle stand to get food, and then he gets to the village where the house is supposed to be. He's like, "There's not a house here," and just like is lost and doesn't make it in time to help anyone. It's like, what a strange character to have.
He runs into a funny fat man who sells watermelons. And then the funny fat man asks him, does he like watermelons? And he goes, no, I like bananas. And then you don't see him. You see him hop into his car, and then you don't see him for a while. Next time you see him, he's a pile of bananas.
It's
pretty ridiculous there. The movie's crazy, but it kept my attention. Like, maybe this is what like TikTokers, they need a movie like this to keep their attention. And I do think it's really good, but there's just so many camera tricks and like filters and like
so much going on.
There's so much happening all the time. The most
interesting aspect of it is, in terms of an experimental movie, they are doing a lot in terms of
it feels like everything you could do at the time.
Yeah,
like honestly,
even honestly, the opening scene is very interesting to me because it's a even smaller letterbox with Gorgeous, the main girl, like doing like potion shit, like she's like in a chemistry lab. And then she like starts walking away from the table in the foreground with all this chemistry shit, and she literally like transitions into the scene in the classroom, and it's like the square letterbox that it starts in is like her friend Fantasy taking a picture of her. It's like they do a lot of really interesting stuff with camera work. This movie came out 2 years after Barry Lyndon, and you gotta wonder, like
Were they inspired?
Was Kubrick, putting in some work on the side?
He helps. Yeah. Nobuhiko. Sorry.
Nobuhiko Obayashi.
Thank you.
Which I just found out he recently passed away in 2020.
Oh,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. to the guy.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
I just want to point out some of my favorite things about this movie. Going back to camera work, there's a scene where Sweet is looking at Prof. And I think Prof is like getting her hair done or something. She's reading something. And what Sweet is doing is like closing one eye and then like alternating back and forth, like opening that one, closing the other, like going back and forth. And it shows like her perspective from like eye to eye looking at Prof. And I'm like, it's just such a little thing, but I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, that's super fun that they did that. Like, it's just like a slight change in angle as she goes back and forth, like all like blinking in each eye. I really like that a lot. I thought that was super fun. And I think my favorite thing in the movie is when Gorgeous starts telling the girls about her aunt, and it goes into a flashback as she's telling it, but it's like the girls are actually seeing the flashback.
Watching a movie, yeah.
And
they're like
all
describing...
Yeah, their commentary is like describing what's going on, but it's like super... It feels 100% realistic, like if you were with your friends watching something and having fun. Like there's like a part where I guess like it says like the aunt's like lover goes to war and he dies, but what happens in the scene is that the film of the flashback they're watching like burns up and like goes into flames, and all that's happening, like that once again they're narrating what's happening, and the one girl is like, it's burning, and like the girl's like, kiss of fire. Like it's just I fucking love that. Like the first time I saw that I was like, that's fucking amazing. I've never seen that.
There's a lot of character behind all of those weird artistic choices.
It just felt real. Like it felt like they were really friends.
The movie itself is not like it's not vapid in that way. You can tell that the guy who made it was like really trying to do something. It just came up with like one of the weirdest movies you'll ever see. But like, there wasn't a moment in this movie where I was like, yeah, let's move on. Like every little detail was very interesting to me. It was just, I don't know. I would still give this movie like an 8 out of 10. Even though I struggled a little bit getting through it. But I do think it is a really interesting, worthwhile movie. Like it's definitely worth everyone's time to. It's also you're welcome. No one else.
No one else.
No, because like the other thing is like it's like an hour and 20 minutes, minus the
super
credits.
short.
Like it's a real
88
quick,
minutes.
It's not like Barry Lyndon where you're putting 3 hours in. Like this is a very quick and to the point kind of movie, and I think it's just a weird flick, man. It's just
they're super weird. Yeah,
they're just a couple movies you see in your lifetime where you're just like, what the fuck? Like what is going on? It's really, it's almost like difficult to describe. I was telling my one coworker about it today. He's like 50 or 60, so I was like, maybe he's
seen it.
Maybe he's seen it. I was like, and he'd never heard of it, and I'm trying to describe it to him.
I love House.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to describe it to him, and he is just like not following me at all. And I'm just like, and we talk about movies a lot too. And this was like one of the first times I've like talked about a movie with him where he just was like, could not follow anything I'm saying. It's just like, you just got to see it, man. Like, honestly,
it's an experience.
Yeah. I like the movie. If I had to give it a rating, I would say 9 out of 10. I got it as like a Criterion Blu-ray, and I am really happy with it. I'll like put it on in the background, I think, for Just as like some background noise because I really like it, and I would recommend watching it with a group of friends if you're having a good time. Also, I just want to say, uh, Kung Fu is the shit. She like basically saves the day multiple times.
Yeah.
And even in her like dying like breath, like when she gets basically eaten by a light, when you think she's gone, her legs actually like land a devastating blow on like the cat.
her disembodied legs still manage a 2-point kung fu kick to kind of like seemingly defeat the evil of the house.
She doesn't defeat it, but she makes she finds out that, you know, the witch does bleed, basically.
Yeah,
which was epic. So 9 out of 10 for me. I love this movie.
Yeah, I'd give it a 9 out of 10 as well. It's really fun. I appreciate it more as just a wacky experimental flick than a horror movie or a horror comedy. Really, it's basically just if I want to put something on to get sensory overload, that's it's on that list for sure. But
I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
if any of our listeners teach a film class at like a university,
you should recommend.
This is a movie. If I taught in a film school, this would be like a mandatory watch for my class for sure.
I agree. Yeah,
it's like a great example of just like, you know, there's the Hollywood sphere where people paint by the numbers and, you know, they pump out a movie that will appeal to all audiences. And then there's House.
Yeah.
And it's totally its own fucking thing. Like, you know, you want to talk about unique filmmaking? That's this movie.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. If anyone still hasn't seen it yet, you can check it out on Amazon Prime for free, and you can rent it on Vudu and Apple TV. I'm sure there's a couple other places, but yeah. That is 1977's House. And speaking of houses,
Jacob, really quick, by the way, we're not friends anymore, and I don't like you, and I think you're an evil person.
So, for my last recommendation, for not my last recommendation, for my last recommendation, for my
my last recommendation before Rob
kills me. For the final recommendation of this episode, I recommended that we watch Skinamarink by Kyle Edward Ball, a Canadian independent filmmaker and YouTuber, and essentially, if I had to try and sum up Skinamarink, really all you can say is just in this house. And you just would kind of so Skinamarink is it's an analog horror movie, a very experimental horror movie for sure, but not in the way that House is experimental.
They're pretty close, those two.
The plot of Skinamarink is basically two young children. I don't think they ever explicitly say age, but my guess would be
four and 5.
They're 4 and 5. Do they say exact age? Or
Evan is 4, and I know his sister's older than him, so I said 5.
Okay. So point being, two very young children wake up in the middle of the night to find out their parents are gone from the house and every single door and window that leads outside has disappeared. So they are effectively trapped in their house, and they again, very young children don't know how to deal with it. So the whole movie is them coping with a horrific situation the best way two young children can, and
which is not well
at all. It really is like I thought it like so it's shot very uniquely. Like I said, analog horror. If anyone's not really familiar with that, it's kind of it's meant to like look really old. They went out, they much like Barry Lyndon, they didn't use any. They only used natural light, whatever lights were built into the house. Then they just cranked the ISO on the camera to make as much noise and as much film grain as possible. to just really like evoke that like you're watching someone's old home video feel, and like, and to me like how it was just how this movie was described to me before I knew anything about it was a coworker of mine was talking about it, and I was like, I've never heard of that movie. What is it? And he was like, it's a horror movie, and it's basically like if you just watch a nightmare for an hour and a half. And I was like,
Right. That's a good
okay,
way to put it, actually.
that's and I was like, well, okay, what do you mean by that? And I looked up the trailer, and I instantly was like, okay, I can see where this is, where you're going with that. And it does. To me, it really does feel like a nightmare that I would have had back when I was little, and I just couldn't articulate weird things that would happen to me. It was
That's the perfect way to put it, because even like all the camera angles are really low, like from a kid's perspective.
Yeah, everything is, and nothing is like, there's always that weird like fuzziness in nightmares where it's like you can kind of make out detail, but like it's not, nothing's really clear. Like a lot of stuff is out of focus. A lot of stuff is like is like it's too far away or too distant or too dark for you to really make out what it is. Like for me in particular, there's like one shot towards the beginning before anything really scary has happened, but it really got to me where I think one of the kids has like woke up from a nightmare and is like just sitting in the hallway outside the parents' room, and that was literally like something I did when I was younger. I would like wake up from a nightmare,
I've been there too. Yeah,
I would be like oh, I don't want to wake up my parents because they'll be mad at me for waking them up. So I would just sit in the hall outside their room. Like it really put me back in like childhood.
Yeah, you just saying that actually now, like putting it exactly that way, where it's like you want to wake them up, but you're afraid you're gonna get in trouble. That's perfect. Like that's in there. Yeah.
Sorry. So
well,
Rob,
like,
Rob, why is this not perfect? Explain it to us.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying the film's perfect. I'm saying
I'm just kidding.
Perfect.
Man, I fucking hated this movie, and so you mentioned the camera angles. That's where I would start. Is that this movie, for some reason, and I get that it's like it's this analog horror kind of look to it, but out of an hour and a half of footage, there are only like 3 scenes, and not even scenes, like 3 individual shots where the camera is actually focused on an individual object. For 95% of this movie, it is all really wacky camera angles, like pointed off center from like a focal point. They do a real, like they're trying really hard. And the first like 10 minutes of the movie is all just these weird, like, not focused camera angles, like just looking at like corners of the ceiling and just, just transitioning like, shot to shot to shot. It's all these camera angles where there's no focal point for the viewer. It's just like a weird shot of like a door frame or a corner in the ceiling, or just like half of a wall, like a doorway, and that bothered the shit out of me, man. Like I the whole movie I was kind of just being like,
but not
can you
in a
give
good
me
way. It was
not in the way I think the analog horror genre intends it, where it's like it's specifically so you can't get a good look at the thing you're supposed to be like scared of, which is even more terrifying when it's like the thing that's out of frame that like you would normally be reacting to in like just a regular Hollywood horror flick. Like there's just so much stuff, and again, there's only like 2 or 3 shots in the whole movie where they ever focus on anything specifically, and that really frustrated me watching it, and it made it hard for me to give it any sort of like suspension of disbelief. Like it was very hard to like actually allow myself to enjoy this movie. I, when I watched it, I was like, I couldn't wait for it to be done. I like kept looking at the time stamp like
That
to see where
like
I was. I was like, this.
for as much as I liked this movie a lot, I will agree with you. I feel like it could have been made shorter because
Well,
Yeah.
here's
I don't
the
know
thing.
if I don't know
Here's
if you've seen it or not, but again,
wait,
I
stop,
said
shut up. Let me say this.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
What you're about to say is
Rude.
what I is so my opinion of this movie, and I wrote it on my Letterboxd review, where I gave it 1 star, was that this movie would work way better as a 30-minute YouTube analog horror video. And then I found out
Yep.
it is a 30-minute YouTube analog horror video. And it
Made by
seems
the
like
same
it's
guy. Yeah.
made by the same guy. And so,
Yeah.
I listen, man, all credit to anyone who can get a movie made and not even that, like get a movie released in theaters. Good luck. Like it's an impressive feat to actually get a film out there and get it in theaters and I,
If nothing
congratulations.
else, if nothing else, I'm happy that like in 2022 you can still have, because this movie had like a $10,000 budget. If anything, like I'm
Yeah.
just glad.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Holy
glad
shit.
that in 2022
That's nothing.
It was
Yeah.
shot in the house the guy grew up in.
Yeah,
It
I'm
was,
I'm just glad that like we still have like the days of like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity aren't gone. Like you can still
Yeah,
make
right. Yeah.
a good horror movie for like dirt cheap and have a bunch of people see it. Like I'm
Hey,
really
man,
happy that we
really,
still have that.
I will never take that. I'll never try to take that away from the guy. Like I can't even. And the dude he isn't even like he's a YouTube analog horror guy. And the more impressive thing is he isn't even like a huge creator in the genre. It's not like he has like 8 million fucking subscribers on YouTube. He's got a small YouTube channel. Like, and this guy made it happen, made something happen that like a lot of people dream of and they can never figure it out, which is like getting a movie through production, through editing, getting it into the hands of someone who markets it and distributes it and puts it in theaters. Like that, it's very impressive. But my overall takeaway from this movie is conceptually, it is a really, really good idea for a horror movie. I think the idea of like waking up in a house with all the doors and windows gone is an insanely scary concept, and there's an entity going around the house fucking with you. Like, it's really spooky. I'm getting some goosebumps right now just describing that concept. But
Yeah.
my issue with it is like I would have much rather seen that concept done with a more focused,
Condensed. Yeah.
literally focused. Like it just more like focused camera angles. Okay, like that's all I want. That is, if I wasn't annoyed so much by the cinematography of this movie, I probably would have liked it a lot more. And
Yeah.
there's a couple really scary moments in this movie that like will get you.
What would you say is like the biggest scare that got you?
So the biggest fright that got me is the toy phone jump scare.
Yeah.
Like, not even kidding.
Not
That
even
really-
the jump scare. I just love the shot before the light even gets focused on it, and you just see
Yeah,
the two
it's-
eyes, because like you don't even see, you don't even see anyone's face in this movie at all.
Right.
Like so, the fact that there's just suddenly two eyes looking at you, just
Really, that
got
really
me.
scared
Yeah.
the shit out of me. The other moment that really scared the shit out of me was when the entity. Well, okay, there were two moments. The one I think was genuinely scary was when the entity like gets the older kid to, or no, the younger kid to stick a pair of or a knife.
A utility knife,
right?
like one of those
Yeah.
retractable knives.
Yeah, he gets the kid. He tells the kid to stick the knife in his eye, and then it's you don't see it, but the kid, the kid starts screaming. The kid listened to the entity. The other thing that really scared me, and again, it was just more of like a jump scare, horrifying image, and it's one of the only moments where there is any focus at all in the cinematography is early on. The older kid, I guess the girl, her her eyes and nose and mouth are like taken away from her, like the way that like Neo loses his mouth in the Matrix. Like
Yeah.
they flash a quick shot of this girl with no eyes and no mouth, and just literally like her face is like,
Featureless.
yeah, featureless, which was scary. But when I watch horror movies, and I don't really like horror movies in general, because I think like jump scares are fucking stupid. I don't get like a
Yeah,
thrill
I
out
agree.
of them.
I don't get anything out of a jump
Yeah,
scare.
even when it scares me, like it'll give me that reaction, the intended reaction. But the problem is, immediately after, it's like, "Ah, come on, man!" Like
Yeah, it's
that's
fleeting.
and there's movies I think the only horror movie I'm really ever willing to talk at length with people about is Hereditary. And Hereditary is a
Right.
movie
I
that
love Hereditary.
only has like a couple kind of jump scare moments and is primarily just full on psychological horror. The shit you are seeing is so out of pocket, and in the conceptually it's terrifying. And
Yeah.
again, like this movie conceptually really scary, but execution, I just thought it was like one of I was like, this is one of the movies when I go to bed at night sometimes, and instead of just going to sleep like a normal fucking person, I say, let's go on YouTube and watch some scary shit and make it really hard to sleep tonight. This is one of the things
This is
I
something
would
you'd put
imagine
on.
you'd stumble on, and it would,
Yeah.
Hey, might I have a turn at
Yeah.
speaking?
Go
I'm
for
sorry.
it.
Yeah, you bitch. You're dominating this whole thing. I do want to say you guys pretty much like said it best. Is like I saw Heck, what basically like paved the way for this movie,
Yeah.
like which was made by the same guy. Heck is the 30-minute version of this, and I think Skinamarink does like some scary things better in it, but I think yeah, take it down to 30 minutes, and I think this would be amazing. I think it would be pretty
Yeah.
like it would be an experience to watch, like worth talking about. And that's actually how I heard about this was Jacob, you had mentioned that this movie was coming around in select theaters, and then that's how the zeitgeist works, where it's like I'm seeing like Reggie Watts tweet about it or whatever. He's like,
Yeah,
embrace
TikTok
the
blew
darkness,
up
succumb to
about
the darkness or something. I was like, oh shit, like okay, this is something that's happening here. So I watched Heck, and Heck is the shorter version, which is better but not as good as Skinamarink. And then
What
Skinamarink,
does that mean?
what do you mean?
like it's
It's
better.
better,
It's
but
it's a
not as good.
it's a better experience, but Skinamarink has more
Oh,
effective
okay.
scares.
Yeah,
Okay.
Skinamarink is
I
like
get
the
what you're saying.
concept of it is more fleshed out, and it's slightly different than Heck, and it's just scarier in
Okay.
that way. But the fact that it's so longer than Heck, makes me I would rather watch Heck or a 30-minute version of Skinamarink.
Right.
Um, and I will say I didn't hate the movie, but I was kind of bored at a lot of parts. And if I were to point out something that like the scariest scene in this movie is at least for me is when one of the kids, I think it's the little boy, he goes upstairs and he sees his dad, and his dad says look under the bed, and he looks under the bed, there's nothing, and then he tells him to look under the bed again, and when he comes back up, his dad's gone, but the mom's on the other side of the bed facing away. And
First time we've seen her in the movie, by the way.
right, but it's not that scene, it's the scene where like she says like your father and I love you and your sister very much, and then a noise comes over from like the closet area, and then I think it's like the mom says either close your eyes or go downstairs, and then the kid does that, and then you don't see the mom anymore because she's walked into the closet, and you hear the mom making these noises that are like
Inhuman.
suffering or pain, and then you hear crunching.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is happening in there? You know, like what? So that like ambiguous like kind of like thing like really freaks me the fuck out, because when you do see the mom a little later in the film, and I think it is whatever this entity is, like in the mom or posing as the mom. It's like really
Right.
freaky as fuck. So
A lot of the
that's
horror,
my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents.
a lot of the horror of this movie comes from the implications of what's going on. A lot of stuff
Yeah,
that
right.
I didn't. When I saw the trailer and I read the thing of like, okay, there's these 2 kids trapped in a house. That's kind of scary. But then when I started to break down the logistics of, okay, so there's no doors or windows, so they have no way of knowing what time of day it is. It's just it's always
exactly.
dark in this house, and that's accentuated by that line where the sister's like, "I think it's time for us to go to bed." Like she doesn't even
Right.
know. Like
She
they're
doesn't
just like,
know.
"Okay, we've watched cartoons for a few hours. Like I guess, and we ate, so I guess now we go to sleep." Like there's that, and then the idea of like, okay, well they'll just turn the lights on, they leave the TV on, but then there's several scenes where it's like, okay, well the kitchen light is out, that light bulb's broken, where it's one less light source for us, or and then that happens a couple of times where it's like their resource, you can just like whatever they're stuck within that house, you can tell is getting low. And it's like the more you start to think about like the logistics of like being unable to leave the house, and like how much that would wreck you mentally to like not know like what time of day it is, to like not know
I'd handle it really well, actually.
like
And that's the point, is
I'd
like it's these
thrive.
kids who like don't know how to handle
yeah.
or even grasp like the severity of how
Right.
scary the situation is. Like,
My big takeaway from it, my like film like degree like interpretation of what it was really
Oh, do
meant
you
to
have
be.
one of those?
It was meant to be what I took away from it was the fear is that you can do your very best in a terrible situation and have it still just go fucking horribly. Like
right.
like the
Yeah.
kids wake up, the dad's nowhere to be seen. Okay, well we're uncomfortable. Let's go down in front of the TV where we're more comfortable. Oh, that we're hearing weird
Get the
noise.
Legos out.
Let's get the Legos out. Oh, we don't know how to cook. Okay, well we know how to do cereal, so let's do that. Maybe we can make the cereal last a while. Oh, there's weird noises upstairs. Okay, well let's move the couch in front of the stairs so that way we feel a little safer. Like, and just no matter what you like in their limited capabilities, like like everything just still goes wrong. Like it's a feeling of like true helplessness, and that's.
Yeah.
What really struck a chord with me is I was like no matter what, like nothing good is gonna happen by the end of this. There's no defeating whatever this thing is that's fucking with them. This is just not gonna end
and
well.
not even being old enough and having the world experience to understand that they're being fucked with. Because like, you know,
Right. Yeah.
as an adult, if all the windows and doors disappeared and you were trapped in your house, it would immediately your head would be like, all right, hell exists and demons
And
are
I'm
real.
here,
And
yeah.
like,
And
we'd
understand it was a prank by a demon. We'd say, "Nice prank."
Nice prank.
Right.
Okay, now
That's
give me,
hilarious.
now like give me
Now
my
put the
door
window
back.
back.
You
Come
got
on.
me. No, in that kind of situation, I immediately would be like, all right, and I'm killing myself.
Yeah, man, I'm done. Like as soon as I see the window flashing like in existence and
Disappear
out of
in front of you.
existence,
Yeah.
like, well, I am gonna try my best to get to the door, and I feel like that's not gonna work. So
And not even that.
Oh, dude, it's like, I'd be like-
when the demon.
I'd be done. I'd be like, it's only gonna get worse from here.
Well, okay. My thinking is, I feel like I would be like, okay, well, worst case scenario, I could like if I could maybe like sledgehammer my way out where this window used to be. Maybe the wall's thin right there. But then when I go into the bathroom and I see this entity taking away the toilet from me, then that's when I'm killing myself.
this man,
like
he wants me to shit on the ground.
Yeah.
I do want to say, like, people talk about this film like metaphorically, obviously, like there's some context clues as to like that people think that this is about like child abuse, because there is all this weird dialogue, you know, like what happens is Like in the beginning of the movie, Kevin falls down the stairs, and it's like assumed like it's assumed it's this entity or whatever, right? And then the dad kind of like he's on the phone later, like talking to somebody. You might assume the mom. It's kind of hard to distinguish. He's talking to somebody.
There's
and he
only
says,
like the dad literally has
Kevin's
like
fine.
2 lines, and that's all we get.
He says he's fine. He didn't even need stitches. So there's a few angles. Like people think like, oh, this could be Kevin died or whatever. Or he's in a coma or something, and this is what's happening. But the abuse thing, it like comes along from like the dad seems like the caring one, and the mom might be the abuser because there's another line where the little girl, the mom gets brought up, and the little girl goes, "Let's not talk about mom. Like,
right.
Let's not do that."
And all the promotional material says the kids wake up and their father is missing. It never mentions anything about where the mom is.
That's what I was getting at earlier. Is like the mom as a character is maybe the most ambiguous part of the whole thing. Like it because at first it's almost implied like there's a separation thing going on between the parents, but then it's this thing. I don't want to talk about mom, which could imply all kinds of stuff. The parents
she's
divorced,
dead. She's an abuser.
She's dead. Yeah, all there's a ton of different things with that. And then like I said earlier, when you brought up the scene in the bedroom, the very first time you see the mom is in this weird nightmarish kind of bedroom scene, and it's
facing
also
the other way, right?
Facing away from the kid, and also it's the exit for the dad. The last time the dad is in the movie there's a lot of weird stuff going on with the mom, and again, like conceptually super scary movie. You know, like
people think there's like a divorce too, because like listen, my parents got divorced, and the line that the mom starts saying before you hear the noise is like, your father and I love you very much, but and it's like, okay, I've heard literally both my parents say that to me, like during the divorce when I was a little kid. So people think that's happening, but if you like think about like it in a sense of like, you know, this isn't just like a demon or whatever, like this is a metaphor for abuse. It's like your exits are gone. You're a little kid and you're helpless. Your exits are taken away from you. Your food, you're like, there's neglect. Like you're having to find the cereal, you know. Though the bathroom's taken away, you're being punished. Like you can't even go to the bathroom, right? That which does happen in some like really sick cases of abuse, you know, like you're not allowed to go to the bathroom or whatever, like whatever the case. And then like, you know, obviously the kids like the daughter gets her mouth and her eyes taken away, like you can't speak about this, like you didn't see anything. Well, and then even, like the kid, like the abuse towards Kevin, like, you know, like you didn't see the abuse towards Kevin because your vision's taken away. I made him hurt himself. And how that scene like transpires or like even starts actually is that the entity says like, I want to play. And then it does lead to like him stabbing himself in the eye because the thing makes him.
And then the very next scene when he's like finally able to call for help, it's like, no, we're gonna turn this into a toy phone. Yeah.
I want to talk about that because that is like the part where it's like that was also actually awesome because it's like, is this a dream? And then he's able to actually make contact with someone on the outside.
Yeah,
it's taken away from him, you know.
Which that was the one moment where because I was the whole time I was like, oh yeah, no one's getting out of this. Okay, this is not going to be a good ending. But that was like the one moment where I was like, oh well, maybe
this could happen.
Yeah. Like
I wanted to say maybe just in terms of interesting filmmaking, in the earlier scenes when the doors and windows disappear and they can't find their dad, they do pick up the phone and try to call someone. And I thought this was actually super cool filmmaking. At first, you hear them dial like 8 numbers. 8 or 9
like an actual
like full phone number.
Probably like mom or grandma or grandpa. Or
exactly. Like a phone number they know. Yeah. And then that doesn't work. And so you hear them dial 3 numbers, 911, obviously.
Right.
And that doesn't dial through. And they try dialing it one more time. And the phone line, I think the girl says the phone isn't working. And
Mhm.
so later in the movie, like when, you know, the boy actually dials 911, you have a conversation with a 911 operator for like 30 seconds, and the 911 operator is doing that thing where, like, if you've been on the internet enough, you've seen those recordings of 911 operators trying to kind of suss out what is going on with like a child or an abuse victim, someone who's in a situation where they can't blatantly explain what's happening, either because they're too young to understand it, or their abuser is literally listening to them
Yeah.
make a
Right, they're
phone
right
call.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that whole thing is super interesting. And the phone line doesn't, like, the entity doesn't change the phone into a toy phone until like the
The kid
moment where the
gets the
911
full story
operator,
out.
yeah, is like, oh wait, you stabbed your eye, and okay, where do
Right.
you
Oh,
live? And like,
that was tough. Yeah.
yeah, dude, it's, again, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that's like, fuck, it's super scary. Like
Yeah.
it's great filmmaking, but you know, it's
I think we're convincing Rob to like it the
Yeah,
more
I
we
think
talk
we're
Yeah,
about it.
well,
slowly
Actually,
turning.
Uh,
Yeah.
I do want
I-
to say the other angle I've heard from people is like the non-metaphorical, like so the beginning of the film once again kind of starts off with Kevin like playing with something that you can't see, and then it leads to him falling down the stairs,
right.
and then it's like pretty much goes on from there that things start disappearing, and like the so going back to when the daughter says, I don't want to talk about mom, or let's not talk about mom. Who's that fucking YouTuber? Wendigoon?
Wendigoon, yeah, I watched his
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, I watched
haven't
that
seen
too, and
his
he
video.
he
he's
thinks
got a good
like
video on it.
yeah, he thinks that like this is the literal take of it, is that like the mom like let an entity in, and it's like ruining the family, and before anyone can gauge how bad it is, it's like fully out of control. Which does kind of you could take that as a metaphor for other things like abuse and like with drugs or something, like alcohol or whatever. But like it is like kind of crazy to think about, because like just the things that are presented to you in this movie, like what this entity
In
can
this
do,
house.
it is scary. It takes away things in the house, the exits, the toilet, people's mouths because they're not listening to it.
And the only real
And
justification
yeah.
we get is when it's like, I did it because I can do anything. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's
How
just
did
yeah,
you do that?
because
Kevin says he's like, I
yeah.
can do anything,
Yeah.
which is horrifying. Horrifying.
The other thing in terms of like a literal take on this movie is near the end you do get some, like, I don't want to say exposition, but you get some clues as to like the kind of grand scope of what's happening. And if it comes up on the screen without any explanation, is just 572 days.
Right. How many days went by?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is just
Well, but it
soul
doesn't even
crushing. Yeah.
it doesn't even say it's been 572 days, or like it just says 572 days. There's an obvious implication, but there's no expository like it has been this many days, right? And but you can take that as like, okay, it's been this amount of days. The other thing is there's a dollhouse in the movie that kind of you see a lot. And the other take I've kind of seen is that the dollhouse in the end is shown kind of like floating in this like opaque, like, empty kind of space. And that is the other thing where it's like the house is no longer like in reality. Like
Right.
the house has been
Yeah.
transported to some other like plane of existence, and whatever this entity is like in control in this world. And so, I think, and I know you said earlier where you're convincing me, the worst part about this movie, and you said it earlier, is like there's a lot of just boring parts. Like that's the first like
Amazing concept, like super cool concept. Just it's drawn out really long. But I think if you like because I
if
saw
someone
Heck
makes a fan edit of Skinamarink that is Heck
Right.
length,
make it 30 minutes.
Honestly,
Yeah.
a 30-minute edit of this movie would be really fucking
would be
good.
kick ass. It would be
Yeah.
so good. But because I saw Heck, it's almost like that, like when I see that house like at a distance like that, or the doll house like that at a distance, it almost is like, okay, they have gone to hell. Like something horrible, especially horrible, has happened where no one can reach them now. Like that, and the way Heck ends is that like so much time goes by where it's like this kid by himself and he's looking for his mom. He's doing all this shit to like, he's doing bad stuff on purpose to like get in trouble so his mom can come out to like punish him because he hasn't seen his mom this whole time. Like days and days, years go by, and finally he's like putting it together. Like I think I'm dead. Like I think we're in hell now. Like this, because this can't be real. Like I shouldn't be alive. I haven't eaten in so long. So
Okay.
I think it's like a similar thing in Skinamarink because it did pave the way for that movie to be made. So like when I see the house like that, I am like, oh yeah, it's the worst it can be. Like that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and not even
If anyone
that,
hates
like,
that, I'll fight him. I'm rowing with everybody.
Well, yeah, I'd like to think that we at least did change Rob's mind a little bit. I
think
can
we did.
I can
felt
agree.
it.
I can agree wholeheartedly that like there were times where I was like, okay, where exactly are we in this runtime? I think that there's a very good, maybe not even down to a half hour, maybe like just less than an hour and 40 minutes. I think that if they gave it another pass in the editing room, I feel like this would have been a much more digestible movie. But I really love it as a concept. I really love a lot of the things that
Same.
like
Yeah.
I like that I had to do a lot of the thinking to like piece together like, oh my god, so it's been this is like they're gonna this light doesn't work anymore, so that's one less resource for them. Oh, this is like the 8th time that they have cereal. They've got to be running low on that by now. Like I really loved that it made me do some of the legwork to try, like, because then that makes me feel like I'm kind of in the same situation as them, trying to think like, oh, this is not
You're in
good.
this house.
I'm in this house, just like the trailer says, in this house. So
Jacob's in there. Get him out.
I'm in this house. Get me out of here now. It's been
They should
572
have mentioned
days.
that in the trailer. Hey, wait a second. My friend's in there. Get him out.
It's like the regular trailer, with just like with all the like the off-center angles of like and like the feet like walking from like looking under the house, and then I just lean in like perfectly center frame and wave.
Hey, that's my friend.
Hey, I'm in this house.
Watch the
Yeah.
trailer.
I
Wait, hold on. Stop the trailer. Get my friend out.
I just want to say you did not change my opinion.
I felt like we did, although you
No,
were saying-
listen, I was
you like
the
it.
whole while willing to cop to no. I was the whole time willing to cop to the conceptual latitude this film deserves. But I will, again, my letterbox review is the same exact opinion I have that you guys even agree with, and I wrote this before our conversation. Like, this movie would be better as a 30-minute YouTube video, and it turns out it is.
I'll posit this question to you then, ignoring like cut it down to a making a fan edit of it. Do you think like if this exact same plot and like the exact same like concept of like, oh, these two kids are stuck in a house and they have no way out, and it was just shot as a conventional horror movie, do you think you would have liked it a lot more? But
oh yeah, 100%.
But do you think it would have been as impactful if it was not executed the way that it was executed?
I mean, I already don't think it was very impactful. Is the thing. Like just like it's not a bad question you're asking, but I think if it was shot as a more conventional horror movie and like just a more conventional film in general, I think that, like, dude, the first 15 minutes of the movie, nothing happens, and it's just like cutting back and forth between these horrific angles that don't do like by the time shit started happening.
So you admit that it was scary though.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
These angles were horrifying.
angles.
Rob was going, every time the angle changed.
Right. No, I mean, literally, like, by the time stuff started happening in this movie, I literally was almost screaming at my TV, like, finally, something is fucking happening, because I was so goddamn bored, and it took a lot. It took a lot for me to not scrub through this movie, but I didn't want to do that to you, and it turns out, I've done that to you before. But I very specifically, there were a couple moments where I was like, I could just fast forward like 2 minutes. I was like, nah, I'm gonna sit here and do the damn thing. And if it was a conventional horror movie, like with like just more like showing me more of the entity, showing me like a little more of the dad, showing me a little more of like what was going on around the house, and less of these like
I think that
long stretches of zero focus. I think I would have a way better opinion about this movie.
I think that you could do the exact same concept and like evoke a similar feeling, maybe not like the exact like childhood nightmare aesthetic of having everything look so lo-fi and have everything look so dated, but I think if this was like a series of like long takes, like 5 or 6 long takes of like different points in this in time for these kids, I feel like that would have been as interesting or as effective. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I like
sort
that, yeah.
that I feel like that could have been, but point being, we got what we got. I'm happy with it. I think Jake's happy with it. Rob is not happy with it.
I'm not saying like I love it, but I knew what I was getting into with an analog horror, which I'm like realizing maybe Rob didn't know what he was getting himself into with it.
I will fully admit, analog horror is not a very accessible. Like a lot of people
it's not accessible.
Don't like it.
It's not exactly my thing, but the whole point is to like build an uncomfortable like aesthetic and ambiance like that.
Yeah.
Like you pointed out earlier, it's like a kid's dream we're watching right now, a kid's nightmare, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's longer than it should be, maybe.
And it just doesn't.
It's drawn out and makes you uncomfortable, but it is.
That's fine.
It's a feeling. It's a vibe.
It's a feeling, and some people want more than just a vibe.
And the reason Rob doesn't like it is because he's so scared.
How many hour and a half analog horror videos have you watched? Is my real
That's
question.
true. That is the point that I agree with you with.
Most analog horror is like
10 minutes.
Yeah, at most.
Exactly.
And that's a
You're
long,
right.
that's a long form analog horror.
I
So
agree.
it's like,
I agree.
I think that like I agree wholesheartedly with what you're saying, is that it's designed to evoke a feeling, and I think that its methods by which it evokes that feeling is not I think its methods by which it does that is not something that everyone is going to like, and I think that's fine.
That's true.
I wholeheartedly enjoyed it. I don't know that I'd watch it again. I would for sure recommend it to like horror fans. To check out.
It would take me a long period of time, but exactly.
Can I?
I would take a break to watch it again.
Can I share?
But I like that I watched it. I thought it was like the fact that it's like a new kind of thing that people were talking about it. I felt good watching it in that way. I felt like I was kind of part of the zeitgeist.
Right. I just can't stress enough how happy it makes me that like such a low budget movie is blowing up much in the same way that I imagine like the Blair Witch was blowing up back in the late 90s.
And I do like the Blair Witch a lot more. But I am like happy for this guy. I think it's like inspirational that he had this idea. He was doing his YouTube shorts for a bit, and then submitted Skinamarink to like a film festival, and then people like were like, "Oh shit, okay, like let's fucking word to mouth." Like it spread around, and good for him.
I think that
Kyle guy is kicking ass.
I think that maybe it's not necessarily him, but I think that Hollywood is. Like, because I mean, a few years ago we had like the Slender Man horror movie that was with Joey King, and that sucked. But I think that movie studios are finally starting to like take internet horror seriously and be like, oh, like it has to be executed in a particular way, and who better to do it than these people who are like actually making these YouTube shorts, like this, like giving this guy money to make a full-blown version of Heck. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a guy, Kane Pixels on YouTube. He's the guy who made the that like Backrooms found footage thing.
Oh yeah.
He has recently, I could be getting this wrong, but he's been given a budget by A24 to make a Backrooms movie. And he's only
I think I remember you telling me that.
And
I'd be excited. I'd watch that.
He's like only like 19 years old. So like the fact that
wow,
it's
oh
insane.
My God.
So I'm really happy that like
Backrooms series blew the fuck up.
I love that shit. It's
probably like one of the most
hell.
successful examples of like analog horror and like internet horror getting widestream or mainstream success. Like
it makes me happy.
Hellish Dreamscapes. I love it.
Hellish Dreamscapes. Yeah.
Let me I just have a hot take really quick.
Then maybe we end on this too, because I'm noticing we have been going a little long.
This is a Joe Rogan app. How long?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I just hot take, and it's only because these movies kind of came out around the same time. A lot of people complained about how long Avatar 2 was. And Avatar 2, every second of that movie, something wildly interesting is happening. There's not a single moment of boredom to be had in Avatar 2. And if you meet someone who complains, who doesn't like Avatar 2 but likes Skinamarink, just avoid that person.
Well, I guess that's a picture wrap on me on this podcast. I'm just kidding. I haven't seen Avatar 2. I didn't.
I also haven't. I am ashamed to even admit it.
It's so good. But yeah, that's just it was a little.
Brennan is so mad at me for not seeing Avatar yet.
Please
man.
Please
I put it off for like as long as I could, and I made sure to see it.
I'm gonna watch it.
Don't tell him that I haven't seen it yet. I don't want him to kick my ass.
Well, he knows. He just can sense it. Like
he has a radar that detects people who haven't.
Well, he's
seen
got
the water.
he's taken the way of the water into his heart, and he can sense people who haven't.
So yeah, I guess if you haven't seen Skinamarink, you can check it out on Shudder, Amazon Prime, Sling TV,
watch Avatar 2,
the Roku channel,
just watch Avatar,
YouTube TV. Yeah, I think it's worth, if you're a horror fan and especially if you like analog horror, I think it's definitely worth it's definitely worth at least one watch, and definitely check out Kai. I'm gonna look up what his YouTube channel is called, because he has a whole collection of bite-sized nightmares. Yeah, this dude, literally 30,000 subscribers. He deserves so much more than that.
Good.
Yeah,
and
doing
that's,
so good
I
for himself.
I think that's doubled since Skinamarink has come out, because he used to have I think he was closer to like 14,000.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah,
even
I'm
when
literally. I'm looking at.
Wendigoon probably gave him a bump.
But even still, I'm looking at a lot of these view counts, and it's like 8,000 views, 3,000 views, 1.3 thousand views. Like it's so niche, but he deserves his audience.
He does, man. He's putting in work for real. So
yeah.
Good job, Kyle.
Good job, Kyle. Go check him out. So yeah, I guess that brings us to the end of the first episode back of the Watchlist podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening.
We got to do recommendations.
We do have to do recommendations. So
oh boy,
for the listeners, this is your homework for in between now and next month. You got until this is going to come out on, well, the day that you're listening to this, it comes out March 6th. You're going to have until the first Monday of April, which is April 3rd. So you got a couple weeks to go track down these three movies and watch them. So who wants to go first with their recommendation?
I'll go first. Why not?
Yeah,
I spoke up first. I hate to be the Japanese guy who loves everything Japan does, but I have not seen this movie. I have it on Blu-ray, and I've been meaning to watch it. So I'm going to use this podcast as like a, the catalyst to get me to actually watch the thing. Studio Ghibli's Porco Rosso.
Okay.
Always wanted to see this.
Yeah. I haven't seen Porco Rosso either.
And I hear it's fucking amazing. So
it's been at least 10 years since I've seen that, so it'll be
really?
interesting to check it out again. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Awesome.
That's like the one. That's one of the last few Studio Ghibli movies I have to watch. So
Same.
honestly,
Same.
yeah, that's a good pick.
Okay, all right. Rob, do you want to?
Yeah,
Go next.
so there's three movies I want to.
Well, I mean, you got to narrow it down.
I know.
One, Rob. God
I
damn
know, and part of me wants to just suggest Barry Lyndon again, honestly.
Do it. No.
But I Jake might have seen this already recently. I don't know if he has, but it's much like Barry Lyndon. It's another movie Brennan put me on to, and I think it's like one of the most interesting movies I've seen. It's a movie called Sorcerer.
I've
19
not seen it yet.
You
Yeah,
talked about
it's,
it on the Buttery Mails. I remember
Yep.
that. You were describing it
it's-
a little bit.
1977 Sorcerer. Starring Roy Schreider, and it's such a strange movie, and I think more people should see it. So, and I really want to talk about it. So yeah,
Okay.
that's my.
I really want to see it. From when you brought it up and I saw Brennan got it on his Vudu. Yes.
It's truly one of the strangest movies you'll ever watch. I guarantee you'll come away with it with
I recommended House, so I'm down to
All right.
watch whatever.
And I guess for my recommendation, I've hyped this movie up a lot. I know at least Jake, you've expressed interest in checking this one out. It is another horror movie, but I think it's much more accessible than Skinamarink.
Yes.
It's called Hell House LLC.
Yes.
And it's
I'm so excited.
It's a found footage slash it's sort of a marriage of like found footage horror and also like Discovery Channel-esque documentary, like intercut about some horrific incident that happened at Hell House LLC, and it's
Jacob,
very
do you have a
good.
problem with me or something?
I just
do you
might.
just-
Listen,
do you
I just
not
wanna-
like me anymore.
I want to broaden your horizons. I want to.
I am so happy I have to watch these movies. Honestly, I it's the perfect excuse because I've wanted to. This is amazing.
Yeah.
It's
So,
a
yeah.
Christmas present. Early.
So again, Jake is gonna be recommending Studio Ghibli's Porco Rosso.
A 10-month early Christmas present.
Rob is recommending. I don't know what studio did it, but 1977 Sorcerer.
Yep.
Let me look up really quick.
I mean, okay.
It is
Paramount.
Paramount. Okay.
Paramount and
1977.
Universal Pictures.
Wow,
Sorcerer.
big motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Involved. The big whales, the big dogs.
It was supposed to be a huge movie, dude, and
And
it
just
did not
flopped.
meet that.
And
Yeah, well-
yeah, the Hell House LLC, actually indie movie that I recently found out was shot only about I want to say maybe 45 minutes to an hour away from where Jake and I live. So it's
What?
Lee Heighton shot.
Oh
out,
shit! Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Holy shit!
It like apparently the people who were making the movie were like, oh, we need to find a haunted house to shoot this movie out of, and then they found.
They picked in this
real
Hell
life
House
in this house. They found a location that is supposedly haunted, but also doubles as like a walkthrough. Actors jump out at you haunted house during the Halloween season, and they said, "Yeah, we'll shoot our movie out of this." So it's a real place that you can go to. My girlfriend and I are actually planning on going there this coming October, so I'll report back if we end up doing that. Hopefully, if I'm not taken, but we'll see what happens.
I have two things to say because this is your podcast, Jacob, and we've had the delight to enter in on this whatever season this is, second or third season, I don't know, of the Watchlist pod, and I need to preface myself a little bit. My first thought coming on this podcast, because I've been on this podcast twice before, is that when I'm doing this podcast, it feels like a real podcast. Like, we do the Buttery Mails every
Hey,
week.
what the fuck?
I'm sorry. It feels like a real podcast where I'm like, okay, I have to, like, I have to
It's just
dot
'cause
my
there's
I's and cross my
rules.
T's.
Because there's
There's rules, and it's great, People love rules. People are a bunch of nerds as of lately. But I love it, and it feels like it's a real podcast. And the other thing is that, like, Jacob and Rob, like, I have to admit, like, are far superior, maybe even more so Jacob, sorry, Rob, are far superior in knowledge of films than I am. And I am not, like, an expert or anything. I'm just coming at it from a place
Jacob
of
just
love.
knows the words. I don't have the.
He went to school for this.
Yeah,
he's a director at PBS who's an
he's
Emmy
got the
award winner. So it's like,
vocabulary.
I'm
I
really
just,
liking this. Let's fluff Jacob in the final minutes of the,
Oh, it's,
the
yeah, and this-
episode.
it is true, and this is what whiskey does. I've had a lot of whiskey, but also, no, it is just like me. I am kind of like, I watch a lot of movies. I watch more than like a normal person would, but I'm by no means an expert, and my opinion just kind of comes from a place of love. So, if anyone like hates on my opinion, so be it. I just want to preface that it is coming from a place of love, and I do appreciate you including me on the project at all, the Watchlist podcast. So thank you for having me.
Hell
like,
yeah.
truly. It's
I'm,
mad fun. Like, talking about these movies, I'm like, I love this.
I'm
so
really
much fun.
I'm glad to have both of you on as permanent co-hosts of the show. I'm looking forward to this new season and everywhere where all the future movies coming down the pipeline.
It's going to be
Yeah,
crazy. We're going to
if-
get the biggest guests of all time on.
If anyone hates on my opinions, you're wrong. I'm right. Okay, Jacob just knows the words to say, but I have good opinions. Okay.
The I guess last thing is that
I agree with that.
la-
Both of you have great opinions on movies.
thank you.
I couldn't
appreciate
think of comedic relief earlier. Yeah.
Although-
Wait, when I mentioned levity?
Yeah, when I was talking about
Christ.
it's like what is that thing where you add humor to drama? Like, yeah, Jacob just knows words better than I do.
They're pretty synonymous, levity and comedic relief.
something, yeah, whatever. It's close enough.
They mean the same thing.
I'm gonna brush up on my vocabulary so I sound like a real film critic, like Jake.
It's not gonna be Rob. It's gonna be Roger Ebert coming back from the grave to co-host the next episode. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, tune in first Monday of April. It's gonna be April 3rd for our discussion on Hell House LLC, Sorcerer, and Porco Rosso. If you just simply cannot wait a full month to hear us talk again, you can listen to the Buttery Mails podcast, which releases every Monday. A little bit less
Oh,
structured.
no, don't even bother. It's not a real podcast.
We just kind of.
But like it's better, but not. I don't know. I gotta shut up.
It's the three of us, and we just shoot the shit about whatever comes to mind. Sometimes there's segments, sometimes there's guests. It's a fun time. So
we're funny. We're taking over the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, we have Alley and Beyond. More positive reviews than Tim Heidecker on his podcast, and that is something to brag
on
about.
Spotify, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, check out the Buttery Mails Discord. Check out the Watchlist podcast Discord. You can find all of that information in the description of the Spotify and on the YouTube. Also on the Instagram that this gets posted to, jacob.boyer.media. Yeah, thank you guys for listening to the first episode of the Watchlist back, and have a good one.
See ya.
Peace.